Magandang umaga sa ating lahat. Ngayong umaga, itatalakayin natin ang talata mula sa aklat ng Matthew, chapter 14, verse 22 to 23. Walking on water in obedience. Sabi dito, immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowds, and after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. So in Matthew chapter 14, verse 22 to 23, we see the disciples facing a test of obedience as Jesus instructs them to get into the boat and go to the other side of the sea. First teaching is obedience need confirmation from Christ. So the disciples' obedience to Jesus' command to get to the boat required confirmation from Christ. They trusted in His authority and followed His instructions, even when it seemed challenging or uncertain. Second is obedience demands focus on Christ. So as the disciples embarked on their journey across the sea, they were called to maintain their focus on Christ amidst the winds and waves. Obedience requires unwavering faith and trust in Jesus, regardless of circumstances or obstacles that may arise. Third is obedience requires faith in Christ. Walking in obedience entails placing our faith and confidence in Christ's sovereignty and guidance. It involves surrendering our will to His and trusting that He will lead us safely through the storms of life. So to apply these teachings in our lives, first ask for God's will. Before taking action, seek God's will through prayer and discernment. Invite Him to confirm His plans and purposes for your life, and be willing to obey His voice, even when it leads you into unfamiliar or challenging territory. Second is obey with focus. So maintain your focus on Christ as you walk in obedience to His commands. Fix your eyes on Him, the author and perfecter of your faith, and trust that He will guide you through every trial and temptation that may come your way. Third is believe in God's sovereignty. Anchor your obedience in the unwavering belief that God is sovereign over all things. Trust in His wisdom, goodness, and faithfulness, knowing that He holds the universe in His hands and works all things together for the good of those who love Him. So walking in obedience is like walking on water because it requires us to step out in faith, trusting in God's power to sustain and keep us from sinking. So just as Peter walked on the water toward Jesus, as long as he kept his eyes fixed on Him, our obedience to Christ enables us to navigate the challenges and uncertainties of life with confidence. So when we obey God's commands and unwavering faith and focus on Christ, we experience His presence, power, and provision in ways that defy human understanding and enable us to accomplish the impossible. So walking in obedience is like walking on water because it challenges us to step out of comfort zones and rely completely on God's guidance and provision. Just as walking on water defies the laws of nature, obedience to God often requires us to go against our natural instincts and trust in His supernatural ability to lead us. So when we choose to obey God's commands, we are venturing into the unknown, much like stepping onto the surface of a stormy seas. It requires faith to believe that God will uphold us and keep us from sinking, even when circumstances seem daunting or impossible. Furthermore, walking on water requires a laser-like focus on Christ. Similarly, obedience demands that we fix our eyes on Him rather than on the winds and waves of life's challenges. As long as Peter kept his gaze on Jesus, he was able to walk on the water. But when he allowed fear and doubt to distract him, he began to sink. In the same way, our obedience flourishes when we maintain unwavering focus on Christ and His promises. Lastly, walking on water is in obedience is a testament to God's sovereignty and power. Just as Jesus demonstrated His authority over the elements by walking on the water, Our obedience showcases His ability to work miracles in through us. When we trust in His sovereignty and submit His will, He enables us to accomplish things that are beyond our natural abilities.